My name is Ava Whitmore, senior strategist by title, survivor by necessity. To the world, I'm composed, successful, and carved from Manhattan marble. But behind closed doors, I've spent most of my life trying to earn a single word from a man who raised me. Daughter. This isn't a story about business or blood. It's about truth. And the moment I stopped chasing approval was the moment everything changed. Ava Whitmore stared at the wrapped key fob in her palm, its glossy black surface catching the light as if it held some kind of promise. She had spent nearly every cent of her annual bonus on this, the latest Mercedes S-Class, parked elegantly in the downtown Manhattan showroom. A gift for a man who had never once called her daughter. Maybe this time will be different, she thought, letting the lie settle over her like a familiar coat. It was warm, if temporary. Every time had been the last time she told herself that. The clerk at the front desk was all smiles. "We've placed your custom note in the glove compartment, Ms. Whitmore, just as requested." She nodded. "Thank you." She had insisted on a small silver plaque on the dashboard, engraved with 5 aching words. "From your daughter. Ava." It was stupid. Chloe said as much over dinner the night before, stabbing her chopsticks into a bowl of spicy ramen with more aggression than necessary. "You're doing it again," Chloe had warned, eyes narrow with concern. "Buying his affection. You've got prey syndrome, babe. He doesn't see you. He just sees what you give him." Ava had laughed then, hollowly. "It's just a car." "No, it's a fantasy. It's hope in leather seats." But Ava had already made up her mind. Earlier that day, she had accepted the promotion to senior strategist at the prestigious Manhattan firm she'd bled for over the last 6 years. Her boss had beamed, shaking her hand with a mix of pride and unspoken expectation. She was calm, collected, the image of corporate poise. But the first thing that crossed her mind wasn't celebration. It wasn't the pay raise or the corner office or the new team she'd lead. It was one anxious, gut-twisting question. Will Dad finally say he's proud of me? That thought was the catalyst. Not even 24 hours later, she stood alone in the echoing silence of her high-rise apartment, staring out at the New York skyline, before opening her laptop and searching for luxury dealers. The apartment was all glass and marble, minimalist and expensive. But it didn't feel like home. Not really. She lived here, slept here. But there were no family photos, no warmth in the lighting, no clutter that spoke of comfort. Just polished surfaces and cold air conditioning. She had told Chloe she was going to Connecticut for Father's Day. She hadn't mentioned the birthday. Somehow, that felt like overkill, even for her. Chloe had crossed her arms. "So let me get this straight. You're driving 2 hours to hand-deliver a $100,000 car to a man who never came to your graduation?" Ava had only replied, "Just once. That's all I want. Just once for him to say it." "To say what?" "That I'm his daughter." The words had barely come out before Ava's voice broke. Now, as she climbed into the rental car, she didn't want to risk scuffing the gift before delivery. Ava slid a slim envelope into the front pocket of her leather bag. The DNA test results. Sealed. Untouched. She hadn't planned to bring them. She wasn't even sure why she had ordered the test in the first place. Curiosity? Hope? Spite? Whatever the reason, she couldn't bring herself to throw it away. Not yet. The drive out of the city was long and slow, choked by traffic and foggy thoughts. Somewhere along the way, Ava drifted into memory, the kind that returned uninvited. She was 6, her first day at a new school. Charles, the man she had been told to call Dad, held her hand in the schoolyard. He introduced himself to the teacher as her guardian, not her father. She remembered the heat in her cheeks, the sudden pressure behind her eyes. And later, when a boy had asked, "Is that your dad?" She'd said yes, but her voice had trembled with the weight of a lie she wasn't sure she had the right to tell. The memory faded as her phone buzzed beside her on the console. A text from Lily, her cousin. "Lily, Grant just mentioned the will at dinner last night. Be careful." Ava's heart dropped into her stomach. She stared at the message, fingers curling around the steering wheel. It had begun. The Whitmore mansion glowed at sunset, every window ablaze with golden light. From the driveway, it looked like a magazine ad for legacy and wealth, the kind of house that told guests, "You'll never belong here unless you were born for it." Ava parked quietly at the side lot, far from the valets, and stepped out, adjusting the hem of her navy dress. She had chosen it carefully, tailored, understated, not too corporate, but not too soft. She didn't want to look like she was trying. In front of the grand entrance, the brand new S-Class Mercedes stood under a halo of spotlights, like an altarpiece. A silver placard on a crystal stand read, "A gift to Mr. Charles Whitmore, for 30 years of leadership and vision. Not from Ava Whitmore, not from your daughter. Just a gift, as if it had fallen from the sky, without hands, without a heart." Ava smiled thinly and walked past. Inside, the house buzzed with warmth and music, too polished to feel real. Caterers in black moved like chess pieces across the lobby, offering champagne and delicate hors d'oeuvres. The garden had been transformed with string lights and gold runners draping every table. It didn't feel like a Father's Day party. It felt like a shareholder gala. Chloe would have hated it. "Miss Ava, welcome." A staff member she didn't recognize bowed slightly. "Mr. Whitmore is in the garden. Would you like me to—" "No," she interrupted, soft but firm. "I'll find him." She spotted Lily first. Her younger sister was standing near the floral archway, laughing politely with a group of older women. She wore a pale blue dress, her hair in a gentle twist, and as always, she looked like she belonged here. Like someone who'd been invited, not someone who had to earn the right to stay. When their eyes met, Lily excused herself and approached quickly, her expression tight. "You came." Her voice was low. "I always do," Ava replied. There was a pause, then Lily leaned in slightly. "You haven't seen the will, have you?" Ava blinked. "Number Y?" Lily's eyes shifted. "Just keep your guard up tonight." Before Ava could ask more, the crowd parted and Grant Whitmore appeared. Tan, charming, his arm slung lazily over a model's shoulder. He kissed Ava on both cheeks, his cologne thick and unnecessary. "Look who graced us with her presence," he announced just loud enough for others to hear. "Big city Ava." There were a few chuckles. Ava smiled with her lips. "Hello, Grant. Dad's speech is soon. Try not to leave halfway like last time," he added, voice honeyed with condescension. "I'm staying," Ava said, "all the way to the end." He raised a brow but said nothing more. Out in the garden, the guests had begun to gather. A string quartet played soft classical music beneath the pergola. Ava found herself standing near the back, beside Elaine, her mother, who looked beautiful as ever in a cream dress and pearls. Elaine glanced at her but didn't speak. Just a polite nod, then her eyes dropped away. A familiar ache bloomed in Ava's chest. It had always been like this. Beautiful, distant, complicit. Suddenly the music faded and the mic squealed to life. Charles Whitmore stepped up onto the small stage, his dark suit crisp, his smile tight. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began. "It's not every day you celebrate both a birthday and 3 decades of leadership. I am proud, deeply proud of what we've built." There was polite applause. "I'm especially proud of my children," he continued, eyes scanning the crowd. "Grant, who's preparing to take on a greater leadership role. Lily, our heart, our light." Then his voice shifted, just slightly. "And as for the ones still struggling to find their place, well, I believe in second chances, even if they're slow to take root." The audience chuckled. Ava didn't. She raised her champagne glass, stared at the bubbles rising, then slowly pulled it back from her lips. This time, she would not bow her head. She would not excuse herself to the bathroom and disappear. She would stay. She would listen. And when the moment came, she would speak. Someone laughed. It wasn't cruel, just nervous, awkward, trying to soften the sting of Charles Whitmore's thinly veiled insult. Someone else coughed. Silverware scraped against porcelain. Champagne glasses clinked. And still, no one said a word, except Ava. She stood slowly, her chair sliding back with a quiet screech that cut through the forced pleasantries. All heads turned. "I'd like to say a few words," she began, lifting her glass. Her voice was steady, too steady. Lily stiffened across the table. Grant leaned back with a smirk, assuming this was Ava's desperate play to rejoin the spotlight. Charles didn't look up. Ava didn't toast. Instead, she set the glass down and opened her clutch. Her fingers trembled only slightly as she pulled out the envelope. "For Father's Day," she said, holding it out, "I brought you something more meaningful than a car." The room went still. Charles finally looked at her. His brow furrowed. He accepted the envelope as if indulging a child's game. But the moment his eyes landed on the heading, "No blood relation, DNA paternity analysis," the corners of his mouth fell. Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. Ava kept going. "I used to think you were ashamed of me because I wasn't good enough. Not polished enough. Not obedient enough. But it wasn't me, was it?" Charles set the envelope on the table. He didn't open it. Grant's smirk faded. Elaine covered her mouth. "Read it," Ava said, her voice slicing through the candlelit calm. "Let them all see it. Let them know." Charles didn't move, but his knuckles whitened against the linen tablecloth. "You always introduced me as your ward, or your stepchild, never your daughter," Ava continued, her voice rising slightly. "You made sure the world knew I didn't carry your blood. Now I know why." There was no drama in her delivery, just clarity. A murmur swept the table. Someone dropped a fork. "I am withdrawing from your will," Ava announced. "I don't want a penny. You can keep your empire. Keep your legacy. But I'm taking back what I gave." She reached into her clutch again, pulled out a second item, the spare key fob to the Mercedes, and held it up for all to see. The key beeped as she pressed the button. In the distance, the luxury car's lights flashed. "I'll be driving myself out of this family tonight," she said. Then she turned and walked away. Behind her, voices erupted. Her mother's shocked cry, Grant's angry protest, Charles's barked order. But she didn't stop. Not when Grant called her name. Not when Charles snapped, "This is a legal violation of privacy, Ava." She just walked, heels clicking across marble. Out the double doors, past the stunned waitstaff, past the car she had once seen as a bridge. She slid into the driver's seat, hands tight on the wheel. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror. Calm, but breathing hard. Her phone buzzed. One call from Mom. She ignored it. A text popped up from Lily. "Lily, I need to know one more truth. Please don't go too far yet." Ava stared at the message. Then she looked out at the mansion glowing behind her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she needed to earn her place. She just needed to choose it. And tonight, she chose herself. They say the truth will set you free. What they don't say is how heavy freedom feels when your entire family calls you a traitor. Ava lay on the stiff mattress of the small-town hotel, the glow of her phone lighting her face. The events of the night replayed in brutal clarity. Charles's frozen expression, Elaine's scream, Grant's furious voice yelling something about reputation and disrespect. But it was Lily's message she kept returning to. "Lily, I need to know one more truth. Please don't go too far yet." Ava stared at the words. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard before typing. "Ava, what truth?" The response came almost instantly. "Lily, I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier. I was the one who sent Dad's hair for the test. I needed to be sure. I've always known something was wrong." Ava sat upright. "Lily," Conted. "When I was 13, I found a photo hidden in Mom's drawer. It was her, pregnant, standing next to a man I'd never seen before. Not Charles. And he had your eyes. Ava's chest tightened. Lily. I asked Mom once, and she panicked. She said it was a family friend from before Dad, but I never forgot. That's why I pushed you to do the test. Ava stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. Then she stood, slipped on her coat, and walked out into the early morning air. The old cafe near the lake hadn't changed in decades. Same creaky wooden chairs, same chipped mugs, same window view of the still water. Elaine was already there, sitting at the corner table, hands wrapped around a cup of untouched coffee. She looked small, even though she still carried the elegance of pearls and pressed linen. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly when Ava approached. Ava sat without answering. There was a long pause. Then, "You knew?" Ava said flatly. "The whole time." Elaine's eyes welled. "I did, but I didn't know Lily had found that photo, or that she sent the sample. I only found out after the party." "Tell me everything," Ava said. Her voice wasn't angry, it was hollow. Elaine swallowed. "His name was Robert Langley. I met him when I was 24. He was a computer engineer, working for a small startup. We were together for less than a year." "Why did it end?" "I got pregnant," Elaine said, her voice shaking. "He wanted to marry me, but my father didn't approve. He said Robert was poor, unstable, not Whitmore material. I was terrified. I didn't fight. I let them separate us." Ava looked away, pain climbing up her spine. "Your grandfather arranged the marriage with Charles shortly after. Charles knew. He always knew, but he agreed to marry me. For image, for the Whitmore name. He said he'd raise you as his own, but he never forgave me." Ava pressed her hands against her knees to keep them from trembling. "So all these years, I was a walking reminder." Elaine nodded. "I tried to love both of you through it, but I failed you." Ava's voice cracked. "You let him humiliate me. Over and over." "I thought protecting the image was protecting you," Elaine whispered. "But I see now it was cowardice." They sat in silence. Then Ava's phone buzzed again. A new email notification. She opened it. Subject: Personal inquiry from Dr. Robert Langley Ava. I just read your message. I'm shocked, to say the least. But if you are who I believe you might be, then I'm honored you reached out. I don't want to force a relationship. I understand the weight of this, but I'd be grateful for the chance to meet. I'll be in New York next month. Let me know if you'd like to talk." Robert Langley, Ava reread the email 3 times. He hadn't denied anything. He hadn't asked for proof. Just offered presence. A true father's instinct. She looked up at her mother. "He wants to meet?" Elaine smiled, but her eyes shone with tears. "He deserves that chance. And so do you." The weight in Ava's chest lifted. Just slightly. Enough to breathe. But then another buzz. A new message. "Grant, I'm suing you for theft. That car belongs to my dad. My lawyer will be in touch." Ava stared at the screen. The real war was just beginning, but this time she wouldn't be walking in blind. "You have no right to use the Whitmore name to damage the family's image." The message came at 6:37 a.m. from a blocked number, but Ava recognized the language immediately. Sterile, formal, and full of threat. The attached signature confirmed it. Sullivan and Dre, attorneys at law, representing Mr. Charles Whitmore and Mr. Grant Whitmore. Ava tossed the phone onto the table in Miriam Cole's law office. Miriam scanned the screen, then raised an eyebrow. "They're bluffing," she said simply. "No one can revoke your surname, and that car, if I recall correctly, was verbally rejected in front of 24 witnesses. You even have it on tape." Ava nodded, folding her arms. "They're not trying to win in court. They're trying to humiliate me into silence." "Well," Miriam said, leaning back in her chair, "they picked the wrong woman for that strategy." As if on cue, Ava's phone buzzed again, this time with a social media ping. A trending video. She opened it. A low-quality clip, likely filmed by a guest at the party, captured Charles standing at the mic, saying those unforgettable words. "I'm proud of my kids, the ones who carry on the Whitmore name, except for one who's still struggling to find her place." The post was already flooded with comments. "What kind of father says this in public? Ava Whitmore deserves better. This feels like emotional abuse with better lighting." Miriam smirked. "Looks like public opinion's shifting." That evening, Ava met Lily at the Botanical Garden downtown, a quiet place far from the scrutiny of mansion walls. Lily looked nervous, her hands deep in the pockets of her coat. "I wanted to see you before things got crazier," Lily said, eyes flicking around. "I also brought something." From her bag, she took out a flash drive and placed it in Ava's hand. "What's this?" "An audio file," Lily said softly. "I recorded Dad last month. He didn't know. He was ranting after a board call and said, 'She was never my child to begin with. Just a reminder of someone else's mistake.'" Ava closed her fingers around the drive. Her throat tightened, but her voice stayed even. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because I'm done pretending." Lily's eyes were wet. "I let him treat you like an outsider for too long. I'm not going to stand by anymore." That night, Ava sat alone on her apartment balcony. No champagne, no lights. Just her, the city skyline, and the weight of decades. Then she opened her phone, logged into her personal account, and began typing. "I was raised in a house that taught me silence is loyalty, that self-worth must be earned like a job title, and that love is conditional on perfection. I gave a gift to a man who never once gave me the title of daughter. But this year, I gave something greater to myself. Permission to walk away. If you're reading this and know what it's like to love someone who weaponizes affection, know this. You're not alone, and you're allowed to leave." She hit post. Within minutes, shares rolled in, then thousands. The next morning, headlines splashed across every feed. "Ava Whitmore, breaking the silence on toxic legacy." Air no more what Ava's post says about power, pain, and family lies. One video showed Charles arriving at a board meeting. Paparazzi shouted questions. Someone asked about the recording. Another yelled, "Is Ava really not your daughter?" Charles didn't respond, but as he stepped onto the stage, his hand clutched his chest. He collapsed before reaching the podium. Later that day, Ava received a text. "Grant, the lawsuit is dropped. Congratulations, you win the internet. No apology, no remorse, just retreat." But it wasn't about winning, because for the first time in years, Ava wasn't fighting to be part of the Whitmore family. She was building something without them. Ava used to think being left behind was the worst thing that could happen. The missed birthday dinners, the silence after big accomplishments, the way Charles's hand would hover in the air like he might rest it on her shoulder. Then always retreat. She used to think that was punishment. But now she saw it differently. Being left behind gave her space. Space to breathe, space to grow, space to choose herself. The autumn breeze rustled the golden leaves around the quiet cafe tucked inside Central Park. It was understated. Nothing like the glassy banquets or boardroom lunches the Whitmores favored. Ava chose it on purpose. She didn't want mirrors or marble or any more masks. Robert Langley was already seated at the corner table, nursing a coffee. He stood when he saw her. Tall, a little awkward, wearing a sweater that looked hand-knit and glasses slightly askew. His smile was hesitant, but his eyes said everything. Pride, warmth, recognition. "Hi," Ava said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hi," he echoed, his voice gentle. "You look strong." She smiled. That's one word for it. There were no grand hugs, no tears, just two people meeting where they truly were. He stirred his coffee. "I didn't know about you until your message. If I had—" "I know." She interrupted softly. "It wasn't yours to fix." They talked about simple things. His work in renewable tech, her old university, her new strategy role, their shared dislike of pretentious wine lists. The ease between them wasn't instant, but it was real. Before they parted, he reached into his jacket pocket and handed her a photo. "This is me. The day I found out your mom was pregnant. I kept it, just in case." The image was faded. Robert, wide-eyed and young, holding a single pink balloon. Ava stared at it, then tucked it carefully into her notebook. "Thank you," she said. He stood. "I'd like to know you. No pressure, just if you ever want that." "I do." They didn't hug, but this time Ava reached out first and touched his hand before leaving. Later that afternoon, she received a message from the Whitmore Estates assistant. "Mr. Charles Whitmore and family would like to formally invite you to a private reconciliation dinner at the manor. All press and legal matters will be resolved prior to the meeting." Ava stared at the words, then deleted them. At that moment, another message came in. This one from Lily. "Lily, you deserve a real family. I hope you know that now." She smiled, her heart full but unburdened. When she got home to her new apartment, small, bright, full of plants and possibility, there was a letter waiting on her desk. She had written it the night before but hadn't signed it yet. To her 16-year-old self. "Dear Ava, he doesn't call you his daughter. He never will. But that's not your failure. It's his limitation. You'll grow up anyway. You'll fail, cry, win, lose, laugh. And in the end, you'll realize you were never missing anything. You were just waiting to find yourself. So go ahead. Walk away from the table that only served you shame. Build your own. Set your own place. Feed your own soul. You're not a Whitmore. You never needed to be. With all the love I wish someone gave you back then. Ava." She signed it, then folded it and placed it into a drawer marked, "Keep Forever." Moments later, her phone buzzed again. Email. Subject, proposal. Ava Whitmore to launch independent fund, backed by Stanton Equity. She read the details. Autonomy, vision, legacy without chains. And this time, her first thought wasn't, will they approve? It was, do I want this? The answer was yes. As the sun dipped low, Ava opened her door and stepped into the gentle wind. For the first time in her life, she wasn't looking back. No mansion behind her, no pedestal to climb, no name to beg for. Just her. And that finally was enough. The silence that once smothered her became the stage for Ava's final triumph. What began as a desperate plea to be seen ended as a quiet declaration of strength, breaking a legacy built on control and silence. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. Like a cracked mirror finally set down, the truth reflected what power tried to hide, but couldn't bury. If you felt her story deep in your chest, leave a comment below. Type 1 if you've ever walked away to protect your worth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful journeys.